3 years ago, Erling Haaland arrived in England with a price tag, a reputation and a lot of questions. Now, he's smashed records, collected trophies, and turned goal scoring into something that almost looks unfair. But what if the biggest shock of Haaland's career is still ahead of us? Because behind the golden boots, the hat-tricks and the headlines, there are signs that the Manchester City striker could be heading towards something even crazier. Records are falling faster than anyone expected. Norway is rising again, and some of his most unbelievable milestones have come before his 26th birthday. So is football watching the start of an all-time great story? Or are we about to see a chapter nobody saw coming? Before we continue, make sure to like and subscribe for breakdowns and updates, and let's get into it. The scary part for the rest of football is that a lot of players peak in their late 20s. Haaland is still piling up ridiculous numbers before even reaching that stage. When he arrived at Manchester City in 2022, people expected goals. Nobody expected chaos. In his first Premier League season, he smashed the league record with 36 goals and finished with 52 goals in all competitions. That wasn't just a great debut season, that was the highest goal total ever recorded by a Premier League and a Premier League player in a single campaign. And then he kept going. By September 2024, he had already reached 100 goals for Manchester City in just 105 appearances. Most elite strikers need years to hit those numbers. Haaland? He was doing it almost immediately. What's even more interesting is that every time people think the numbers must slow down, another record appears. Fastest player to score 3 Premier League hat-tricks. Fastest player to reach 20 Premier League goals. Fastest player to reach 50 Premier League goals. So maybe the biggest shock isn't that Haaland became a superstar. Maybe the shock is that we're still trying to figure out where his ceiling actually is. And that brings us to something even bigger than club football. For years, Norway had talented players but not enough moments. Then Haaland arrived. The striker has completely rewritten the country's record books. He became Norway's all-time leading scorer after reaching 34 international goals and breaking a record that had stood since 1937. Not only that, he became the fastest player ever to reach 50 international goals, getting there in just 46 matches. That's outrageous. And the goals haven't come in easy situations either. During World Cup qualifying, he scored 5 goals against Moldova, then followed it with a hat-trick against Israel. By the end of the campaign, he had scored 16 goals and found the net in all 8 qualification matches. That run helped Norway secure its first World Cup appearance since 1998. Now imagine the storyline. A player already considered one of the best in the world finally gets a World Cup stage with a country that has spent decades waiting for this moment. That's exactly the kind of stage where legends create their biggest chapters. But if you think international football is where the surprises end, wait until you see how quickly he conquered Europe. Some players need years to adjust to Champions League football. Haaland treated it like a personal challenge. Back at Salzburg, he exploded onto the scene with a hat-trick against Genk on his Champions League debut. Then he scored against Liverpool, then Napoli again. Suddenly, Europe couldn't stop talking about him. By the age most players are still learning the competition, Haaland was already breaking records. He became the fastest player to reach 15 Champions League goals, then the fastest and youngest player to reach 20 goals. Later, he became the fastest player to reach 50 Champions League goals, doing it in only 49 matches. And there was that unforgettable night against RB Leipzig, 5 goals in a single Champions League match. Only a handful of players have ever managed that. The frightening thing is how routine he makes it look. Big stage, huge pressure, elite opponents. The reaction is usually the same. Haaland scores. That's why defenders spend 90 minutes worrying about him. Because even when he seems quiet, one run can change everything. And speaking of defenders, there's another reason people believe his story is far from finished. Watch Haaland for 5 minutes and you'll notice something. He doesn't play like most modern strikers. At 6'4", he has the size to bully defenders. But then he suddenly accelerates into space, like a winger. That's what makes him such a nightmare to stop. His game isn't built around fancy tricks. It's built around timing, power, movement and ruthless finishing. He can hold defenders off with strength. He can attack crosses with his head. He can run behind a defensive line. He can finish with either foot. According to multiple managers and players, that's what separates him. Jurgen Klopp called him the best striker in the world. Gary Neville described him as truly unique. Even Pep Guardiola has repeatedly suggested there's still room for improvement. Think about how ridiculous that sounds. A player with Golden Boots, Champions League records, and over 300 career goals is still being talked about as someone who can get better. That's exactly why every new season creates another question. What happens if the finished version of Haaland hasn't even arrived yet? And that question becomes even more interesting when you look at his journey. The football world acts like Haaland appeared overnight. The truth is, the clues were everywhere. At Brine's reserve side, he scored 18 goals in just 14 matches. At Molde, he exploded with 4 goals in the opening 21 minutes against Brann. Then came Salzburg, where he produced 28 goals in only 22 appearances during the 2019-20 season. Every stop looked the same. Goals, records, more goals. Then came the moment that changed everything, his move to Borussia Dortmund. On his Bundesliga debut, he came off the bench and scored a hat-trick. A week later, he scored twice again. Soon, he became the fastest player to score 5 Bundesliga goals and the first player to score 7 goals in his first 3 Bundesliga matches. The signs were impossible to ignore. This wasn't a hot streak, this was a pattern. Every level got tougher, every defender got better, every competition got harder, and somehow Haaland's numbers kept climbing, which leads to another mystery surrounding his career. This might be the strangest part of the Haaland story. Despite all the goals, all the trophies, and all the records, the criticism never completely disappears. Some point to missed chances. As of early 2026, he had missed 21 big chances in the Premier League, the highest total in the division. Others question parts of his overall game, but even during periods when people say he's struggling, the numbers remain ridiculous. In the 2025-26 Premier League season, he still produced 22 goals and 7 assists in 29 appearances by late March. That's what makes Haaland such a fascinating player. The standards around him have become impossible. A season that would define most careers gets treated as a down year because people expect something superhuman. And sometimes those expectations create pressure, the kind of pressure that either breaks players or pushes them toward another level. For Haaland, history suggests it's usually the second option, which brings us to a huge decision that shocked football. In January 2025, Haaland made a statement without scoring a goal. He signed a contract extension running until 2034. Think about how unusual that is. At a time when football's filled with transfer rumours and superstar exits, Haaland committed almost a decade of his future to Manchester City. Immediately, people started asking questions. Why stay that long? What does he still want to achieve? What records is he chasing? The deal removed release clauses and became one of the biggest long-term commitments football has seen. For City supporters, it was a dream. For rival clubs, it was a warning. Because the striker who already owns Premier League records wasn't planning an exit, he was planning a future. And when elite players commit to a project like that, it usually means they believe there's still unfinished business. Which leads directly to the biggest reason he could shock everyone. Haaland has already won league titles, Golden Boots, a Champions League, a treble, UEFA Men's Player of the Year, and countless scoring records. Most players would spend an entire career chasing that list, yet he's still adding milestones. He reached 300 career goals before turning 25. He became only the second youngest player this century to hit that mark. He matched Lionel Messi's record for goals in official international club competitions before age 25. And he continues breaking records in both England and Europe. So what happens next? That's the mystery. Maybe it's a historic World Cup run with Norway. Maybe it's rewriting Champions League history. Maybe it's pushing Premier League goalscoring. League goal-scoring records so far that nobody touches them for decades. Whatever the answer is, one thing feels clear. When a player keeps achieving things that football has never seen before, the safest bet is not to doubt him. Because every time people think they've seen the best of Erling Haaland, he finds another way to make the impossible look normal. And that's what makes Erling Haaland such a fascinating player. From smashing Premier League goal-scoring records to becoming Norway's all-time leading scorer, Haaland has spent his entire career turning huge expectations into reality. Every time football thinks it has found his limit, He responds with another milestone, another trophy, or another record that nobody saw coming. Now, a World Cup with Norway's on the horizon, his long-term future at Manchester City is secured, and he's still adding goals at a rate that doesn't seem normal. Do you think Haaland will become the greatest striker of his generation? What record do you think he breaks next? And can Norway make a serious World Cup run? Make sure to like and subscribe for breakdowns and updates, and we'll see you in the next video. Thanks for watching.